I'm on time today. I'm so glad. Okay. Okay lah, 1 minute late, but still considered on time. Okay. Oh, is the music a bit loud? Yeah. Hold on. Today's music is coffee jazz. Hello. Welcome. Okay, for those of you guys who are new here, this live series is about coming home to ourselves, and this is already our third live on this series. So welcome. So we're just gonna wait a little while for the rest to join us before we start today's topic. Okay. Hi Shane, good evening. You missed the event? What event? Oh, you mean the Chill Carnival event? It's okay, there will be a next time. Okay, so anyway, the Chill Carnival event was actually last week, right? Wow, why did it feel like it was so long ago? Yeah, it was just last week, last Saturday. Yeah, so if you guys would like to be notified for the next one, usually I host it once every quarter lah. Okay, then y'all can actually go to the profile link, my profile link, right? And then you can sign up the wait list so that when the next round comes, right, I'll personally DM you. Okay, the next one is probably maybe June, not June, July, August maybe. We'll see how. But yes, it was a very fun experience. So for those of you guys who joined, you guys can join again. Okay, there's no number of times that you can join for Chill Carnival. Yes, and I hope to see you there in our next one, Shane. Hi. What's with this Buddha and remain humble thing? It's not the first time I'm seeing this message, okay? It always comes up in my live session, this Buddha comment. Hello. Okay, we're just gonna wait for a few people to join. Today we are actually going to be talking about a very interesting topic, which is you know yourself, but you still feel very stuck. Okay, and recently I just started thinking about how a lot of things are changing in our world. Okay, like the entire emotional climate is changing. I don't know if you guys can actually like relate to this, or whether is it just me, but I just feel that like things just don't feel the same, right? And like a lot of like the old ways of how we do things, how we think, they seem to no longer hold as much credibility or weight. We find ourselves question, how come things are this way, that way, right? And I mean, even in my work as well, when I work with people, more and more people are questioning their roles, maybe within marriage, within their jobs, right? And I just feel that we are sort of like in this in-between space, as a collective, and we may not know where we are heading to, but I believe that a lot of you guys, like me, right, can also feel that we are going through some sort of shift. Okay, I mean, okay, maybe since COVID we have been going through this shift, but I don't know. I feel that since the end of last year and then throughout this whole year, it just feels that things are no longer the same, right? And we just may not know what's coming for us, and that's why I think this relates very well to tonight's topic as well. Somehow we just feel that things are different, and we may not know how to move, how to navigate, right? Like we know that things are changing, but somehow it's just really hard maybe to cope with new climate, new changes. So yes, that's what I'm sensing lately. How about you guys? The shift is like never ending. Yeah, that's true. The shift is like never ending. It's true. I guess it's just like if you think about our human inner world, right? We are always shifting, right? Always shifting. But there's also big shift and small shift, right? There are times where you really you know that you're going through a bigger shift. But there are times where, okay, life is like sort of going fine and, you know, it's more ordinary, day to day, it's the same. Those times there's still shift. Yes, I agree. Okay. Yes. But yes, it is sort of never ending lah. I mean, it's true. Okay, welcome everyone. How's everyone feeling today? Yeah, exactly. Things are very different, like especially job sectors, right? Jobs are no longer how we used to know they are. I mean, the first shift was actually COVID, right? But after that, you know, like what Alisa was saying, there's actually many minor shifts after that. And even until now, right, we see how the world is, how even like questions like, can we still trust, you know, authority? Can we still trust maybe the government with all the scams going around as well, right? I mean, all of these things are also pointing us towards the question of, you know, how much, you know, how our outer structures, you know, the structures that once keep us safe, you know, keep us intact, do they still hold, you know, in today's like climate? Yeah, but in any case, right, with any new system emerging, with any new sort of system or ways of living emerging, this collapse needs to happen first, right? Then new things can form and emerge. How I know this? How I know this is because, right, I mean, it's the same for the human psyche, right? Where we work with our patterns, certain patterns need to loosen first, right? Before new ones can come in. And when new ones come in, it also takes time before it can gradually form like more stable architecture, like a stable pattern. Okay, so it just dawned upon me that, you know, outer shifts may just operate on the same principle. I mean, we never know, but any of you guys study political science here, or I don't know, sociology here, maybe you can shed light onto this. Yeah, okay. Do you guys know what's today's topic or not? Today's topic. Yes, we have a topic today. Okay. Currently sick. Oh my god. So my partner is also sick today, so I actually accompanied him to the hospital. Just like okay, not hospital, did I say hospital? Clinic. Yeah, hope you're feeling better, Alisa. Yeah, okay. I'm actually feeling pretty good today. Okay, today's topic. Okay, and for those of you guys who are new here, this is Chill By Nette, bi-weekly live session, okay? And the series for this live is Coming Home to Yourself. This is our third live session on this series already, okay? And today's topic is, you know, we know ourselves well, we know our patterns, we know sort of like maybe some of our triggers, but yet we still feel very stuck. Okay, so 8 of you guys registered for today's live. Okay, I don't know which 8 lah, okay, but I hope you guys are here today because maybe this topic relates to you in some way, right? That's why you guys are here. So if you guys can actually put in the chat, you know, how come you're here today for this topic? You know, what in particular you feel stuck about? Or what is it that you have been trying to change for a while but still feel like you really cannot change, or you just cannot find a solution or a way out, right? If you can just leave it in the chat here, okay, I think it's going to be helpful for all of us, right? Okay, because sometimes we can be the person that really is very self-aware. I work with many self-aware people. We can talk things through, we can even map out every single pattern, right? And I mean, they also journal a lot, right? And they even know what is the way to when are their patterns gonna come up. But when it comes to like really making that sort of like sustainable change, right, it still feels like there's this gap, okay? And they still find themselves in familiar places, okay? Like maybe it could be overthinking, or like people pleasing, right? Or maybe some people struggle with avoidance, right, procrastination, and they are still they still find it very, very difficult to, like exit that pattern. So if this is you, just share with us what is the pattern that you notice that you want to break out of. Okay, I know there's 8 of you guys here who sign up, right? And there's specifically definitely something that maybe you're working through, okay? So just share it here as a safe space, and all of you guys can share. Hi Jules, long time no see. Wow, where have you been and how have you been? Okay, and meanwhile, for those of you guys who is here just to chill and ask questions, that's okay as well, right? Just that today we have a topic to cover, so you can still ask the questions. I'll answer it if I see it, okay? But today's topic is when you know yourself but you still feel very, very stuck, okay? And specifically, if you have any patterns, just put it in the chat. Follow my step. Yeah, you're one of the 8. Great, okay? So tell us, okay, what is something that maybe you feel like you know something really well already. Like maybe it could be a certain pattern, right? Certain reaction or certain cognitive or behavioral pattern that you're aware of but still find yourself very hard to break out. Okay, for me, right, personally, right, I have this pattern of always being there for, like, let's say my friends lah, okay, like sometimes I'm very tired already, okay, and then my friend was like, hey, you want to go for this event, that event, I'll very automatically like just let's go. I realized this is a pattern. Okay, I realized that this is a pattern. It's not necessarily a healthy pattern, right? It's like people pleasing, right? It's like, oh, but at the same time you also want to go, but sometimes you're just very, very exhausted. So I know this pattern so well, but oftentimes when my friends ask me, right, I still jump into saying yes, okay? So it's like this kind of thing. So if you guys have this pattern, a certain pattern that you find yourself, having, just put it in the chat, yeah, so that we know. Okay, I'm just scrolling to see if there's like any patterns here. Feeling stuck, yeah. And feeling stuck is such a, I don't want to say wonderful, but I have a new way of seeing this feeling stuck, right? Oftentimes when we feel stuck, that means our soul maybe is at point Z already, okay? But our human body is still like, maybe at point like B, okay? So that's why we feel stuck, because a part of us is already ahead, okay? But a part of us still haven't catch up, okay? So being stuck is not necessarily a bad thing, okay? It's not a bad thing. But yes, it can feel very frustrating because you are like the whole of you is not moving together, maybe from point A to point Z, right? One part of you is already way ahead, okay, and parts of you are still catching up. So that's why we feel stuck, okay? It's not random, okay? Stuckness always comes when certain parts of us are not moving together, okay? But it's also something that is very, very common. Okay, let's see if there's anybody saying any patterns. A lot of things that you're feeling stuck with at the moment. Okay. Am I a psychologist? Oh my god, this is number one question I get every live session. No, I'm not a psychologist. And then the next question usually is like, oh, what are your credentials? And then I always say that, oh, it's an interview session. Hello, Miss Lily. Welcome. Okay, so yes, okay, so nobody's putting down their patterns here. Why? Okay, so I give you an example of patterns, okay? So for example, overthinking is a pattern. Oh, feeling of lack. Yes, feeling of lack is a pattern. Thank you, trader. Okay, trader Yue. Okay, yes, feeling of lack. Maybe doubting ourselves sometimes, right? Feeling like, oh, no matter what I do, I'm just maybe not enough, or maybe sometimes overachieving. So all of these are what we call patterns, okay, patterns. And it's okay we don't know what is this pattern. If we don't know what is this pattern, maybe the last live session will be more relevant, okay? Because this live session is assuming you already know your pattern, okay? You already know yourself. That's why today's live topic is about you already know yourself, but you still feel very stuck, right? Yeah. Okay, don't have patterns. Wanting to feel validated at the same time, knowing I can have self-assurance, but I can't seem to sit in. Wanting to feel validated at the same time, knowing I can have self-assurance, but can't seem to sit in. Okay, I'm still trying to wrap my head around that comment. Yes, wanting to feel validated. Not feeling worthy, understanding our own identity. Yeah, that's a pattern. Yeah. Sometimes the pattern can really be knowing something in our mind but not being able to live it, right? Knowing maybe certain things that are good for us but not being able to sort of like manifest it out, you know? That could be a pattern as well. Okay, so there are many different patterns. Pattern just means something that's recurring in your life. Okay. Okay, thanks for sharing all your patterns, guys. So keep them coming, right? What other patterns that you can notice? Okay, so for myself, my pattern is that even though I'm very exhausted already, I still say yes to a friend's outing, friend's gathering. And then after that, I'll just be like really like a dead battery like that. Okay, so that's one of my patterns. Another pattern that I have is also sometimes like I over-explain things, okay? So I noticed that I have this pattern where sometimes when I say something already, I'll repeat and say it again, okay? The person maybe already understood, okay? But I just keep explaining like as if explaining more would help the situation. So it's a very automatic body reaction thing. Even though in my mind, I actually really want to stop this pattern. You know, it's like, yes, I should not over-explain. But when a moment comes, I still find myself over-explaining, okay? So that is two patterns, okay? So knowing our patterns, okay, is the first step, yeah? And for those of you guys who have just shared your patterns, we are sharing here not to shame our patterns, okay? We are not shaming our patterns, okay? But it's not about saying that how come I'm still stuck in this pattern, okay? It's not about saying that, okay? So today we are actually diving deeper into when we have these patterns, okay, how can we actually bring more understanding and awareness to it, okay? So it's not about shaming them and asking ourselves, hey, why am I still like that, right? Or it's also not about, putting ourselves down because we can't do something, okay? Because we just feel this sense of lack, or maybe for some of us we overthink, right? It's not about shaming these patterns, okay? So we're just putting it out to recognize it and to acknowledge them, okay? Yeah. I realized how easy anything could affect me. The memory of it will stay for days or even years. Yeah, that can be a pattern as well. Thanks for sharing. Happy birthday, lazy one. Yeah, self-criticism, that itself can be a pattern, yeah. Justifying action, self-guilt, yeah, like for example, actually you didn't really have to justify, but you find yourself justifying. Or sometimes it's like, it's not even your fault, but you find yourself apologizing, right? And all of these things is, when we talk about patterns, they may be healthy patterns. We are also not just talking about unhealthy patterns, but a lot of the times, the patterns that we are naming here just doesn't serve our soul, right? It doesn't serve where we are heading towards, okay? And that can feel extremely frustrating, right or not? Okay, so it's like, oh, another pattern that I have is that sometimes I tell myself that, okay, I want to rest. Okay, like, I need rest, okay? But whenever I rest, right, it can feel like I cannot fully go into that rest mode. Okay, that is another pattern as well. Okay, so our mind might start to go into this mode. Okay, and it will say like, oh, I already know this, I thought I had worked through this already. For some people who have went to therapy, maybe you have already reflected through this, but the mind will just keep asking, how come I'm repeating this pattern again? Okay, so I'm not sure if you guys can relate to this. I definitely can relate. Okay, because a pattern comes up in a way that frustrates us, right? But this is also where it gets very, very important, okay, guys, which is, if you notice that your mind has this tendency, right, to kind of ask these questions, then we have to go back to last live session, okay, which is to meet ourselves, okay, with more compassion. Okay, so meeting instead of fixing. Okay, so for those who just said that, okay, they notice they have this self-criticism tendency, correct? The first step is to notice that you have this questioning tendency. Okay, and you want to know that, okay, the first layer is definitely compassion. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, so the mind layer is the first layer. Okay, we need to be able to recognize that layer first. Okay, when it comes to our body patterns, our mind will usually come in to shame it, to ask questions. Okay, that is the first layer that we need to be aware of. Okay, that's the first layer that we need to be aware of. Okay, we don't let our mind run too much into that. Okay. And depending how loud is your mind, some people's mind is like a monster or a tiger. It will just come and scream and say like, you should know better already, Yeah, if you know your trigger, you shouldn't be triggered. Some people's voice can be a lot louder, okay? But some people's voice is like, yeah, why are you still like this, right? I already thought I worked through this already. How can I still repeat it? Okay, so if you notice that you have this kind of mind patterns, right? Okay, you just want to make sure that you add self-compassion into your to yourself. Okay, when you notice these mind patterns. Okay, this is something very important. Okay, the thing is, right, I also want to add that sometimes, okay, knowing that you have this pattern is helpful. Okay, why is it helpful? Okay, it's helpful because it actually adds a sense of safety. At least we don't feel that we're alone in our patterns, right? Being able to name it, being able to say, oh, I have this pattern, I have this overthinking pattern, I have this people-pleasing pattern. I think it's helpful. Okay, adding to what you mentioned, this one I already read. Like recently I was in a program, I realized I couldn't multitask and I questioned myself, am I useless? Yeah, so that's a very, very harsh critic there, okay? That's a very harsh critic. Yeah, so yeah, patterns will keep appearing in our lives until we learned it in an embodied way, okay, which I'll go through it later. Okay, so even if we identify our pattern already, the pattern will still repeat until we learned it in an embodied way, okay, which I'll be going through later. But a lot of the times, right, going back to identifying our patterns, knowing our patterns, we can label this as, okay, maybe seeking validation, people pleasing, or we know that, we are overthinking. All these are good, okay? It helps us to feel less alone in our patterns, okay? And all these patterns are what makes us humans, right? If we don't have these patterns, then we're not human already, okay? So identifying them is the first step, okay, guys? It's always the first step, yeah? But don't over-identify. Okay, so once you identify, that's enough already. There's no need to go layer after layer and after layer to over-identify with it. Okay, because when we over-identify, that is when it becomes a sort of a criticism, or it can actually take us further away from resolving that pattern. Okay, so this is where a lot of people, the mistake that a lot of people make is when you identify it, then you continue to go and identify and dwell into it and keep asking, wow, you know, how come I'm like that? How come this people pleasing tendency is like that? Okay, so don't go into the over identifying phase. Okay, just stop at identifying can already. Okay, as long as you feel like identifying serves that purpose of giving you that safety, at least I know that, oh, I'm not alone. It helps me to normalize, oh, this is my pattern. That's enough. Okay, alright, does that make sense so far? Yeah, if you guys have any questions, you can just put it in the chat. Okay, today's topic, we are talking about knowing ourselves, our patterns, but we still feel very stuck for some reason. Okay, we still feel like we cannot move towards the direction that we want to. We feel like we cannot exit certain patterns. Okay, yeah. Okay, I'm just gonna pause to drink my Coke for a while, okay? And I tell you, okay guys, it's very ironic because the most self-aware individuals often have this pattern of over-identifying with that pattern. It just means that we are self-aware, but self-aware also comes with this tendency of, or rather pattern of over-identifying with a pattern. Okay, and that's where last week's topic comes in, right? Meeting yourself and fixing yourself. There's a difference. Okay, we want to meet ourselves, but we don't want to go into over-identify and then it becomes fixed. Okay, yeah. Okay, true, I'm getting more aware of my tendencies to loathe myself, but end up it affects me more. Exactly. You know, when we do that, what are we essentially doing is that we are laying a pattern on top of a pattern. Okay, and then after that, if that's not enough, then we lay a pattern on top of a pattern on top of a pattern. Okay, so then it becomes like this whole ball of pattern to later on we need to unlearn and untangle. Okay, so don't do that to ourselves. Okay, yes, really, like I really you know, like really want to emphasize this, because for self-aware individuals specifically, okay, that we have this tendency to identify a pattern already. We say that, okay, yes, we have people-pleasing tendency. Okay, we stop there. Okay, we don't go asking, oh, you know, I thought I already know this. Yeah, you know, I have people-pleasing tendency, and yeah, I really cannot get out of this pattern. And yeah, why am I such a people pleaser? Okay, don't go there. Okay, that one is over-identifying already. Okay, so you see the difference, right, guys? Or worse still, if you shame yourself, or you kind of just try to like tell yourself to get out of this pattern. Okay, that is still another form of identifying with the pattern, but just in a different way. Okay, we are forcing ourselves to get out of it. To the extent I once formed a list of things that I hate about myself, and I'm like, why did I do that? Yeah, right? So it's like, yes, so it's like, you know that this is like unhealthy, but instead of just saying that, okay, this is unhealthy, we hate ourselves for the unhealthy things. Yeah, it makes no sense, right? It doesn't resolve our pattern. If anything, it just adds another pattern on top of our pattern. Okay, so we finished talking about patterns already, yeah? Okay, any confusion, anything that's not clear, you can clarify in this live. Okay, as long as it's related to today's topic, I'm happy to answer. So when you identify your pattern already, okay, not over-identify, when you identify this certain pattern already, for example, for me, it's like I keep saying yes to my friends, right? For some of you guys, it's like this feeling of maybe seeking validation, or what other patterns, like self-loathing, self-criticism. Okay, once you identify this pattern, how do we then resolve it? Right? So I'm going to the meat of today's live already. Okay, so for those of you guys who are here today, we are actually talking about how, just for those of you guys who just joined, right, we are talking about how when you have a pattern, you know this pattern deeply already, how come you still find yourself repeating it? okay? And how do you get unstuck from it, okay? And today we are going to be answering this question. Okay, but before I go into the answer, any guesses how do we then, if it's not to like continue criticizing ourselves or continue asking our question, asking why am I like that, right? Then what do we do? Anybody that has successfully resolved a pattern and they would like to share, like how do they actually overcome a pattern that is very ingrained or very sticky in them? Okay, please share with us your wisdom. You resolve it through self-judgment. Wow. Okay, I must say that sometimes, right, self-judgment can resolve a pattern, but the caveat here is that it only resolves in the short term. Okay, self-judgment, self-criticism, trying to like shame yourself through resolving a pattern, it will solve, okay, but it will probably solve for that week, okay, or maybe that month, okay, I give you that year, okay, but it often comes back, okay, so that is the drawback lah, okay, that is the drawback, okay, not saying that it can't. Oh, that was before, okay, yes, oh yes, acknowledge and acceptance. It's like a total opposite, right? Okay. What was my question before? What was my question? What was my question before that? Okay. Oh, patterns. Okay. Right. Okay. Yes. So a lot of the times, yeah, guys, our patterns, they are not stored in the mind. Okay, so this is one thing that we got to understand. Okay, so that's why awareness of our body patterns, our behavioral patterns, even if our mind is aware of it already, right, it doesn't resolve the pattern immediately. Okay, it doesn't remove the fear, it doesn't remove the emotional charge, the body memory, okay, and it doesn't remove any like emotional pull, right, and a sense of like safety. Okay, so patterns are built and organized, okay, in a way that prioritizes safety. It prioritizes repetition, familiarity, right? It has a memory. Okay, yes. Okay, when you do something for a lot of times already, your nervous system is already so used to it, right? And by questioning, why am I still stuck? Why am I still stuck? Why am I still stuck in this pattern? It does not remove any of those things. It doesn't do anything to either one of these things, like familiarity. Okay, if anything, it creates another pattern, right? We talk about it. It doesn't remove any emotional charge. It's the emotional charge that keeps patterns stuck together. I mean, keeps a certain pattern running, by the way. It doesn't resolve any body memory. Okay, so that's why, okay, if you find yourself having this habit of questioning your patterns, shaming your patterns, or just like making, or even like just making like judgments, yeah, about your pattern, then try to quit that first, okay? But don't make quitting another pattern as well, okay? But just acknowledge that, okay? And the next time when you find yourself asking, why am I still stuck in this pattern? I want you to ask yourself, okay, what feels very unsafe about changing? So a more compassionate question will be to ask, what feels very unsafe for me here? How come I cannot start my project now? How come I cannot say no to this person? How come I cannot say no to my husband? How come I cannot say no to my wife? What feels very unsafe for me here? Okay, so when you find yourself going into judgment, or you find yourself asking, why am I still stuck? Why am I still not out of this pattern? You want to quit that, and you want to try to shift to a curious mode, like, what am I feeling unsafe about here? What feels unsafe about going into that direction? Okay, this is a very important question. Okay, but it's also a question that we are not used to asking. Okay, so we just got to make it such that we are more used to asking this question rather than the why questions. Okay, so we just got to ask ourselves, what feels very unsafe here? Okay, and of course you want to be honest with yourself when you ask yourself this question of what feels very unsafe for me. Okay. How do you break that? When you say you used to have self-judgment, expectation of yourself doing the right things, how do you overcome it, if you can share? As a therapist, do some patterns by patient make you shocked, like something bizarre that you are not encountered before? I wouldn't say shock, yeah. Because I look at the fundamentals of patterns, right? All patterns are learned, okay? And when we are shocked by something, it's sort of like we are also, in a way, putting our judgment onto something, right? But if we take a more compassionate stance of making curiosity the priority, like how come this person learned this? What was actually learned? How come this pattern is so big, let's say? Then it's less of shock, but it's a lot more on curiosity for me personally lah. Okay, but of course certain patterns are really very out of the norm, and the intensity sometimes matters as well. It can be really out of proportion to the situation, but it's never from this place of like how is this possible, that kind of thing. No, I've not had that reaction before. Okay, so okay, why do we want to ask, like, what feels unsafe here? Okay, because okay, it's a very, very fundamental thing. Because staying in the pattern sometimes just feels safer, okay, than stepping into something new. Okay, and actually this is almost like applies to most patterns. Okay, why we stay in the pattern is because it just feels safer to be in that pattern. It just feels more familiar, right? It's a very basic, of course, like theory and logic here, but to me, it's the most important thing to understand when you want to break a pattern. It's just because the current pattern just feels more comfortable, more safe and familiar. And as humans, our fundamental need on the Maslow hierarchy is what? The most bottom need is what need? Is what? Is safety, right? Psychological safety, food, water, shelter, physical safety, right? So safety is always driving a lot of our big patterns, small patterns, and actions. Okay, so even if an old pattern is very painful, like maybe yes, self-loathing is very painful. In fact, I would arguably say it's one of the most painful things. I used to be my biggest bully growing up, right? And for any mistake that was less than perfection, I would hate myself for it. I would shame myself for it, right? And that is very painful, okay? But painful doesn't mean that we automatically can get out of the pattern, okay? Especially if the pattern is something that feels more familiar, feels more known to us. Okay, does that make sense? Makes sense, right? So we got to understand this logic that our nervous system will always default and we will always choose what is familiar. Okay, not because it's best for where our soul is heading to. Our soul wants love and our soul wants to get us out of our pattern. Our soul just wants to move, in that direction. But our nervous system is not on par with our soul most of the time, right? And it just doesn't know how to survive in that place, in that reality where our soul wants to go to. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, and because of that, okay, we feel stuck, we feel torn. Okay, because we don't move together with our soul. Okay, we lag behind, right or not? There's this lagging. Because I just don't want to move out of my comfort zone. I just want to stay in my bed, right? That kind of feeling, okay? So our system always... Okay, let me just catch up the comments first, okay, guys? Yeah, okay. Someone just answered, with more awareness, I found that it is me feeling unworthy. I don't feel good enough. So is this a cognitive awareness? So sometimes even with this awareness, right, we kind of understand where our patterns come from. We can still find ourselves repeating that pattern. Okay? Okay, I'm very overwhelmed by the questions now. Okay, give me a moment. Let me read the questions. There are a few questions coming in. Okay. Can a person understand own patterns without going to professional? Yes, there are many ways to actually understand your pattern. Okay, understanding your pattern is not hard. Okay, with ChatGPT, I believe you can understand your pattern. With Google, you can cognitively understand and map out and make sense of your pattern. There was once, right, a client came in and he brought a few pages of notes. He showed me the mind map that he drawn. He can actually map out his pattern. Okay, so yes, understanding the pattern is not the hard part. Okay, but here if we are talking about breaking it and moving out of it, okay, it depends how deep your pattern runs lah also, right? If the pattern is actually built on top of patterns, and it's just this whole ball, then sometimes getting help might just be an easier way, right or not? Like, it's like, not saying that we cannot like untangle it ourselves, but if it's patterns layer over patterns, right, it can take just a very, very long time, right or not? Yeah, but definitely you can, right? And then understanding your own pattern and breaking it is two different process. I always want to emphasize this. Understanding it is just understanding it, okay, and seeing it, okay? But moving in a different way, changing your reality, is a completely different process, okay? Yeah. Hi there. How to encounter hyper independence from parentification during teenage years. Right. Okay, so here, hyper independence is a pattern. Okay, it's a pattern, right, that you notice. If not, you wouldn't use this term. Okay, hyper independence is a language, a term used to describe certain maybe pattern of doing everything yourself, not relying on other people for your needs, right? So how do you actually counter, and your word counter here is like, how do you break this pattern, right? Which I'm going to share. You're in the right channel, okay? You're in the right channel today, okay? I'm gonna go there soon. Okay. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Okay, I'm gonna answer who is this guy's question? THC question, okay? How to counter, right? Because just now we talked about how we understand that pattern is always because there is a safety, familiarity reason there, correct? Okay, so it's like saying, like, for example, if you're a people pleaser, right? Saying yes to someone or a request that you don't want to do just feels somewhat safer than saying no, okay? To protect your own time, and maybe that's what you deeply want, okay? And that just feels safer, even though your soul, right, wants to move, in the other direction. Maybe your soul wants to say no, like this is just out of my limits, right? But the system just cannot register that as being safe enough, okay? So knowing this, what does this mean for us? Okay, what does it mean for us? Okay, wait up. Okay, so what it means for us is that we need to rewire our nervous system, okay, in a way that is safe enough, okay, in order for us to break that pattern. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, so For example, okay, if I give you an example, like for myself, I give you the example that I just brought up just now. Let's say resting just feels very hard for me, okay? Like whenever I rest, I just cannot stop thinking about work, and I will just go to my work, okay? So what I would usually tend to do, right, if maybe I just tell myself that, okay, like I just want to like completely like not think about work, and then I just give myself that break to go for like a holiday, okay? And then I just go for my holiday, okay? This would usually sort of feel very how do I put it? It's like in my work, okay, in my work in that moment, but after that there might be a rebound. You get what I mean? Okay, so in the same way, when we keep saying yes to someone, okay, we may not want to immediately just say no to someone, okay, because you're just like going to the opposite direction of the same thing, which can feel very unsafe. Okay, am I clear here? Okay, I'm just going to repeat it again, okay, because I think I'm not very clear. Okay, so it means that when we want to break a pattern, we don't want to immediately move to the opposite end of it, okay? I give you an example, okay? If you want to actually, let's say, get out of this pattern of self-loathing. Someone says self-loathing just now, right? Okay, you don't really want to jump all the way into like, loving yourself, saying positive affirmations to yourself, okay? Because that's the opposite end of the same spectrum. You see what I mean, right? Okay, so why? Okay, why is because it's not sustainable. Okay, if anything, your nervous system wouldn't register that level of jump as a safe jump. Okay, you will make it maybe to the other end, but maybe you will just do that for one day lah, okay? And then after that, you might just collapse back or rebound. We always call this a rebound, and then you go into this loop, okay? There's just this emotional loop kind of thing. Okay, can you guys relate to this? Okay, let's see if like anybody can relate to this pattern. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so if you're dealing with a pattern of self-loathing, saying positive affirmations to yourself, which is going to the other side, right, is not going to like help it, okay? So for example, if you are someone who how do I put it? Let me think how do I say this? Okay, yes, you want to slowly introduce, okay, like whatever that feels unsafe into your system. Okay, you want to slowly like make anything that's unsafe safer to your system, okay, and not at a complete like one shot kind of way. Okay, because the last thing we want is to demand transformation so quickly, okay, that we don't really have the support, okay? Like there's not enough support, and then we just demand it so quickly, and we hope to change from point A all the way, and then we are at point A, we want to go to point Z. We just do this jump, right? What happens is that our system will rebound, because it's the most unsafe thing you can actually do for your system. You get what I mean? So if you really truly want a full life transformation, okay guys, then you really got to go in a way that allows you to slowly, one step at a time, make whatever that is unsafe safe. Okay, and that's not for you to jump from point A to point Z. Okay, it could be you jump from point A to point C or point A to point G. That's still okay. Okay, it depends where is your limits lah. Okay, and then when you actually do that, okay, you stabilize that first. Okay, then after that, maybe after you jump from point A to point G already, right? That's stabilized already, right? Then you jump from point G to maybe like point P, for example, okay? And then you stabilize that. And then from point P, then you jump to point Z, okay? And it's a very simple logic, right? But we don't apply this to ourselves when it comes to our own pattern breaking process, okay? So it's not about trying to give ourselves that one dramatic breakthrough and like that, taking the advice from this like podcast or YouTube and then applying it, like a like hoping that there's a breakthrough, that kind of thing, because you do not know how much that is creating this sense of unsafety to your system, which will make it harder to eventually break the pattern. Okay, does that make sense? Oh my god, I really feel that I didn't really explain well. Like I feel that like is it clear, guys? Like basically, in short, right, we just cannot try to change too quickly. Okay, even though our system just demands us to want to like a full-fledged transformation in the shortest time possible. Okay, but our nervous system doesn't work that way. Okay, and I'm speaking specifically to those who tries to break their patterns a lot of times but still cannot break. Okay, my advice here is to go even slower. Okay, go even slower and just really manage one step at a time. Okay. Yes, you get it. Yes, exactly. Take it one step and not a drastic step, and make sure that you really you got to be honest with yourself also lah, right? You have to make that step a little bit hard for you, okay, but not too hard. Does that make sense? Like we just need to take it one step at a time. We don't get a product from just an idea. Exactly. Like if you have an idea and then you just want this product to appear, like tomorrow, technically you can. Okay, so when your body is able to move as fast as your soul, that's when manifestation takes place, right? Some people can think of this idea today and then tomorrow they make it happen. And then you will be thinking, how come it's so easy for that person? How come this person say they want to do and then they can really just do it without any friction, without any pushback? That is because they are already moving, their body is already moving at the same speed as their soul. Okay, but for many of us, including myself, right, it's not the case. You know what I mean? So it's like we cannot take this blanket advice, okay, that people give us, say that, oh, do this, okay, tell yourself that you're worthy, okay, every day. Because when you do that, your nervous system don't even feel that is realistic. It's like jumping from point A to point Z, and then you ask yourself, how come I still don't feel that I'm worthy, right? But obviously, if a person is already at point Z when they tell themselves that, hey, I'm worthy, that is just something that feels very safe for the nervous system. Okay, does that make sense? Yeah, okay. So, yeah, okay, and another thing, which is the second thing that I want to say, right, with regards to how to break our pattern. So number one, you really register it, right, which is to really not to try to change so quickly when it comes to very, very difficult patterns. Take it really, really slow. Okay, it's like slow until, right, you can have the confidence to do it. You know that you are going to get it done. Okay, and like for example, if let's say your problem is setting boundary, okay, maybe your next step is not to set that boundary, even though online articles and ChatGPT will tell you that, okay? But you don't go and set the boundary. You maybe notice maybe your resentment first, okay? Like when you actually don't set proper boundaries, you will definitely feel a certain sense of maybe guilt or resentment. You notice that first, right? Maybe that will be the intermediate step, rather than going to like point Z, which is to say, hey, this is my boundary, don't cross it, So that's point number one. We cannot try to change so quickly. Okay. Second thing is that we always have to remember that oftentimes, right, our insight can stay in our head. Okay, but okay, a lot of the times we are more than just our mind. Okay, we are also our entire body. Okay, and when our insight is only in our head, okay, and if it doesn't get translated down to the body, then a part of us, like for example, if I tell myself that I'm allowed to rest, right? And no matter how much I tell myself that, if a part of me still feels guilty when I rest, then I will never be able to truly rest, right? And that guilt that I hold in my body usually comes from a past experience. Okay, so you got to process that past experience first. Okay, and it could be a past memory. So our body always holds on to certain memory. Okay, for example, if we tell ourselves that I'm worthy, okay, but there might be a part of us that no matter what, right, just doesn't feel worthy. Okay, and if that is the case for you, certain experiences has taught us, okay, the emotional memory of that unworthiness, that part that feels unworthy, still lives within us. Okay, and what we got to do is that we got to feel the experience, in a way, not go back to that memory, but going back to the emotions in which that memory evoked, okay, and release the charge. Okay, you don't erase the memory, but you release the charge that is stored in the body. Okay, and when you're able to do that, okay, then that's how you bridge the insight into the body level. Okay, and again, then but the point of this, right? The point of this, then you can start to move at the same pace as more towards the same pace as your soul, lah. Okay, okay. So, okay, I'm going to pause here and I'm going to answer the questions. Okay. It's a change in person, in mentality. It's like a paradigm shift. It takes time to adapt. Yeah, it takes time. Time is also not exactly right. I don't believe that, even though we all say healing takes time, but sometimes we can take 50 years, but we are still stuck in the same pattern. Time is only one factor, okay, but a lot of the things, it depends on how much our nervous system is able to stabilize and feel safe. And that can take very short time, that can also take very long time, right? How to find old experience that you might not remember? Wow, this one is very hard to answer. This is really hard to answer, but you typically cannot do that sort of go back to an old experience unless you are probably in a different state of awareness where you are able to relax your conscious mind a little bit. Then you kind of get memories that might be coming up for you to access, because a lot of our memories are really suppressed really into our subconscious and unconscious, and they wouldn't typically float up and come up to our mind, right? And they do that so that we can function in our daily life, okay? But sometimes there are still emotional charge, unresolved things that is not really fully processed, that will weigh us down and that will prevent us from moving forward. Okay, that can also be one of the reasons why we feel like no matter what we do, we still feel very stuck. Okay, so always try the first step first, which is to try to rewire the pattern step by step. Okay, don't move from point A to point Z. Okay, I hope you guys are taking down notes, okay, because this is really important, especially if you want to break your pattern. Okay, don't move from point A to point Z, break it down to super small steps. Move from point A to point B, make that super safe, super easy first. Then move from point A to point C, make that super safe, super easy first. Move from point A to point D, and then eventually move to point A to point Z. Okay, but if you do that already, you still feel like cannot. I still feel like it's very hard to stabilize from point A to point B. Okay, that's when you know that there are certain high emotional charge in the body that's pulling you back. Okay, something is there, okay, to be processed. Okay, so then when you process that already, then it's easier to take the action to move from point A to point B. Okay, makes sense? Okay, yeah. To go back to the emotional memory and release the emotional charge, is it done by hypnotherapy? Yes. Hypnotherapy definitely is able to do that. We may not even need hypnotherapy to do that. Psychotherapy, through talk therapy, sometimes we are able to release charged memories as well, like body charge as well. Suddenly I'm rapping. Do you like my rap? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So actually that is essentially the breakdown as to how do we actually move out from what keeps us stuck. Of course, if you want to add a step 0, right, it's whatever that I said just now, where if we notice that we are overly identifying with a pattern and trying to add more pattern on top of our stuck patterns, which is to shame or criticize or you know, ask ourselves how come this pattern is still here, then you work with that first, okay? You need to bring compassion to that first, okay? Then you do the point A to point B thing. Okay, does that make sense? Yes, yeah? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and I think, right, even moving from point A to point B sometimes is not a very easy thing, okay? Because, as I said, our nervous system is wired around safety and what feels familiar, okay? So sometimes if we, you know, self-loathe or we criticize ourselves, it's likely that it's very hard for us to receive love and care as well, okay, from others. So even for some people, the pattern may be like receiving care or love can feel very difficult. Like when people give you a compliment, you just feel like, I can't really receive it, you know, I feel so like vulnerable, you know, even though objectively it's a very beautiful thing, you know, to receive this love and compliment from others, but a part of us just cringe so much, right? So even that in itself, right, you know, it's like it's I mean, recognizing that can also feel quite sad, you know, for some of us, but it is also not to like blame ourselves for it, you know. It's like our nervous system just feels that not receiving compliments and not hearing them can just feel safer for us, okay? And change is only hard because the new way or the foreign way just hasn't feel safe enough for us yet, okay? That is always my principle lah, and that's why in therapy for me is always prioritizing safety. Always number one thing, okay? Safety is the most important thing. Without safety, nothing changes. Really. You can download every single self-help book. You can download every single tip and logic, okay, from ChatGPT. But without safety, there is nothing that you can practically actually do or change. Okay? What do you say? And like, I don't know if I'll mean what I say. I never do well getting compliments. Like I feel so awkward. Yes, okay, so that can be a pattern. That can be a pattern that you can start. I mean, not all patterns needs to be broken, right? We are also mindful of the fact that only if we feel that this pattern is not serving us, maybe for you, maybe if you think that not getting compliment is something that I want to break out of, then yes, you can start doing that, you know, whatever that we have talked about today, right? Starting to kickstart that point A to point B, point A to point C, I mean point B to point C thing, okay? One step at a time. Okay, so we are nearing the end of today's live. Alisa Lenny, this tickles you so much, right? Okay, so I hope today's live was helpful. Is it helpful, guys? I mean, I feel that like a lot of the things that I talked about here it's a bit like sometimes common sense, right? Or rather, yeah, when we know the theory, it feels like, hey, it's so obvious to us. But I guess a lot of the times, you know, it's about making it into something that is practical and really reminding ourselves as well, right? Wow, that's great to hear. Yeah, sometimes even for me, right, I really need to remind myself to go really slow as well. Okay, going slow, okay? The ironic part about going slow is that we think that we won't get to the last step, okay? We won't get to the transformation that we want, but it's always the key for any real big transformation. It is always small steps, small steps, small steps. Even when you look back, oh, I really walked so far already. Right, y'all hear the story, you know, the tortoise and the hare, that one. Well, that's one of my favorite stories as a kid, okay? And it makes so much sense, okay? So, I just want to leave you guys with this, okay, today. Instead of asking, how do I stop this pattern? How do I get out of being stuck, okay? how do I stop being so stuck or change this pattern? I want us to start asking ourselves, okay, what is the next honest and gentle step for ourselves? Not the biggest step, not the most impressive one, okay, but is the step that, okay, like makes us feel that, okay, even though this is small, but you know, I feel that it's confident that I can do it. Okay, I can see myself doing it. Okay, that is the honest step. Okay. Comment about sleeping anxiety. Yeah, sleeping anxiety usually is it's usually a surface issue lah. Underneath there's probably things that's keeping that anxiety there, that insomnia there, right? Yeah, sleeping anxiety is, to me, I always see it as is a surface issue. Okay, there's always something that is there underneath it. Okay. Okay, it's 10:38 p.m. Why did my music just stop? Let me just play my music again. Okay. Hi, long time no see. Yeah, my hubby, he's sick today actually. Yeah. Well, but that is a very long time since me and him do a live session together. That was like, I think 3 years ago. Yeah. Okay, that's all, guys. So yeah, I hope you guys learned something from today's live session, and for those of you guys who are sort of curious as to how to take this further, right? Yeah, it's really that long. I think 3 to 4 years ago since we did that. I think you were there, right, Alisa? AMA live. Yeah, it's been so long already. I think it's 3-4 years. Okay lah, 3 years. Yeah. Okay, so if you guys would like to actually reflect more on this topic, I think there's a lot, okay, today here in this live, right? And I'll be sending more reflections, maybe not today but tomorrow, in our community, okay, in the broadcast community. So if you guys are not there, okay, you want to join that channel, because I will always be putting like post-session reflections and all in that channel for us to sort of think a little bit more, okay, after today's live, which is on how do we get unstuck, right, from our patterns. So I hope that, you know, we can really remember the 3 tips, right? What is the 3 tips? Even I cannot remember the 3 tips that I wrote. Okay, so the first one, okay, don't shame yourself for your patterns. That's number 1. Number 2 is like, don't try to change so quickly, contrary to what all the self-help books and people tell you, you know, to jump from point A to point Z. Don't, okay? It's just going to sort of like make your nervous system feel more unsafe, and you're just going to feel shitty about yourself, and it doesn't do anything, okay, to sort of make the unsafe more familiar, okay? It doesn't. So don't do that, but instead you want to move from point A to point B, point B to point C, point D, point C to point D, okay? That kind of one step at a time, okay? Ask yourself, what is the next realistic step that I can take, okay, towards the direction that you want to go towards, okay? If you don't know what's your direction, that is a topic for next live session, okay? Now I think I just thought about my next live topic, what we can talk about already, okay? So how do you know what is your direction? Okay, I think I'll leave that for next time. So the next live session, right, will be next Wednesday, okay? Usually I'll also put the live announcement and updates in the Telegram chat, okay? So if you'd like to get notified, okay, you want to be in the community link is in my bio link. Is a public free access community channel, so usually I put the updates there. Okay, and also today's live session notes and reflections, I'll also be putting it there. So the third one, what is the third one? Oh, the third one is that if all of this still doesn't work, okay, that means you do step 1, step 2, step 3 already, and it still doesn't work for you, right? It means that something is pulling you back. Okay, it could be an unresolved memory, it could be an emotional charge. Your body consists of certain memory. Then that kind, right, you probably, okay, might want to get external help lah, okay, because it requires us to release certain emotional charge. And once you do that, transformation can happen very fast as well. You probably don't even need to go from point A to point B, point B to point C, point C to point D, that kind, okay? Okay, yeah, I just thought of this point A to point B thing, like it's not even in my notes, okay, I didn't even write it down, but this just came out. But I think it makes a lot of sense, right, to basically describe how to break it out into smaller steps. Okay, yes. Yeah, and once you release any emotional charge that is keeping you tied down, okay, that's when you bridge the mind and the body together. Your body can move, okay, together with your mind and your soul, okay? Yes. Okay, that's essentially what is happening when you say that your therapies actually help you to release certain emotional charge. It could be done through talk therapy, psychotherapy, or it could also be done through hypnotherapy. Okay, so that's all for today's live session. Yay! So this is already our third live, okay, on this series of Coming Home. The next one will be 2 weeks later. And I think now that we talk about this whole direction thing, right, I think some of us also have this question of how I know what is the right direction for my soul to go towards, right? Okay, so today we talk about how to rewire towards the direction. But sometimes the question is like, how do I know what I want? Right? Is it to quit the job or not to quit the job? Is it to like move here or move, you know, maybe like go to point A? Do I want to go to point A, or maybe I don't even want to go to point A, I want to go to point like I don't know, point 0, okay, which is a completely different direction. Okay, so we maybe can talk about that in the next live session. Okay, that's all. And by the way, our next Chill Carnival is going to be in July. The one that we just did was in last weekend. Okay, and if you guys would like to join, I think someone asked in the start of this session, right? Again, the wait list is open again. So if you'd like to be notified for our next Chill Carnival, which is a small group rest and reconnection circle, there'll be guided visualization, and it's really a visualization circle to help us to build up our inner safety. Okay, that's the whole entire theme of the Chill Carnival. And if you'd like to be notified for our next session, it's probably going to be in July or August, not so soon, then you can sign up the wait list again in my bio link. Okay, yes, I've had my dinner already. I actually ate like 2 dinners so that I have energy for today's live session. Okay, that's all, guys. So I hope you guys manage to take down the important things that y'all need, and just take whatever resonates and leave what doesn't behind. And I'm going to see you guys in 2 weeks time. Where is this Chill Carnival held? No, it's not online, it's actually in person, and I only limit it to 6. Okay, so 6 is the max number. Sometimes I can stretch it to 7, but I prefer it to be a small circle so that the energy remains intact. Okay, and it's a guided group by myself lah. There's no need to participate if you don't want to. Like, in a way, some participants, they just come in and they want to actually just be within that community. If you want to share, okay, there is opportunity for you to share as well, but it's not compulsory lah. Okay, so the next one is going to be in hopefully July, if not August. Yes, and yeah, I will let you guys know when the next one is open. Okay, guys, I hope you guys have a good night, and then I will see you guys in 2 weeks time, same time, 9:30, and that will be, oh wait, no, it's not 3rd June, because 3rd June I'll be in Japan. Okay, so probably the next live will be 10 June. Okay, so I'll see you guys 10 June, which is 3 weeks from now. Yeah, totally forgot that in 2 weeks time I'll be in Japan. Okay, so I'll see you guys in 3 weeks time, 10 June. Okay, I'm gonna end this chat already. I just saw some people just say hello to some people, and then I'm gonna end the chat already. You guys can take this conversation offline, okay? Thanks, Alisa. Bye. Have a good night, everyone.